Hey guys, this is Erin Chase here from Digital CoLab, and I am joined by Tony Anderson from The Happy Housewife and Digital CoLab, and Andrea Deckard from Savings Lifestyle and Digital CoLab. And we are so glad that you have joined us this evening to talk about accounting and bookkeeping. It's everybody's favorite subject, not really, unless you're into numbers and maybe you were a bookkeeper and accountant before you became a blogger or online entrepreneur. So we just wanted to talk about, what we've learned through all of this and getting our businesses off the ground, as well as give you sort of that, swift kick in the rear that you might need when it comes to the whole process of quarterly taxes and keeping track of your receipts and your books and all that comes with the kind of admin side, the business side of blogging. So that's what we have on tap tonight, and we're really looking forward to diving in. Just a quick, this is just my little personal spiel about this. So this is not to go political or anything, but I've decided that if everybody in America had to pay quarterly taxes and didn't have it taken out of their paycheck, but you had to actually write a check to the government of the United States that was for 26 to 30% of your earnings, our country would be in a completely different state. And I don't know if y'all agree with me on that, but this has been a real eye-opener for me in starting my own business. Up until now, I had either, had taxes taken out of a paycheck. I lived overseas for a number of years, and then coming back to this, it's like, you mean what? I have to do what? And they get what? And they're doing what with it? It just is really eye-opening, but that's just my own personal little, not to go political, bipartisan or not, it doesn't matter. I think that if people really were aware of how much they had to pay in taxes every paycheck, every month, every quarter, whatever it may be, then I think our country would be paying a whole lot more attention to how our government was spending our money. So that's just my little own personal spiel about this whole owning your own business, paying quarterly taxes, and being your own boss. So why don't we start with what does your bookkeeping process look like? Do either of you? Not Tony. Based on the look on her face. Tell us how you feel about bookkeeping, Tony.
Where's the shoebox?
I brought props. I'll try to move it in slow. This is my system. It's a bunch of file folders that I have my children help me with. Because,
homeschool.
Homeschool. I told Erin when she said we were going to do accounting, I said I don't even need to be on this chat. I need to be watching the chat. I am an accountant's worst nightmare. So I am terrible. I am the person who on December 31st is frantically looking for receipts and downloading bank statements and credit card statements for the whole year. And it's funny because I'm organized in just about every other area of my life, but when it comes to the blog and money, there's a disconnect for me, and I track what I'm making, but I'm just terrible at depositing money. The girls know that I have someone coming in the room. I'm terrible with depositing money. I'm terrible with keeping track of it. I'm terrible with expensing things, and then at the end of the year I panic because I don't want to pay more taxes, and I start digging through 20 bags and moving boxes to find receipts. I'm getting better this year. I started early. I got my kids to help me in January for this year as opposed to December for last year. And I don't really have a whole lot of tips other than don't be anything like me. It is a nightmare. It causes you tons of stress and your family tons of stress. I know, and apparently this is Grand Central Station today. And the other thing that has helped me a little bit is that when I travel a lot and I get a lot of random receipts like cabs and dining receipts, and those never make it home with me. I don't know what the deal is. I put them in my bag. They never make it home. So I take a picture of most of my receipts now before I lose them, and since I know I'm going to lose them at some point. And that's actually helped me this year where, especially with cab fares, because a lot of times that's cash. And so just taking pictures of things for me is probably my only tip that I have for you tonight is, take advantage of your smartphone and use it to help you be a better bookkeeper. Because it has worked for me, and it's actually saved me a huge headache from last year's taxes is the fact that I had a lot of my like parking receipts and cab receipts and toll receipts as pictures on my phone because I could not find the pieces of paper when it came down to it. But Andrea is really organized, so she can give you a lot of good tips.
Okay, before we do that, though, can I jump in on the smartphone thing and show you this really cool app, Tony, that's going to change your life?
Yes, I'm ready. Change me.
Probably can't really see it. It's called Expensify, and it's for exactly what you just were talking about as far as capturing expenses on the go. You can even create expense reports for a particular trip. So it's called Expensify. You can scan, add an expense. You can do mileage for your car, which is fantastic. I drove to Austin last weekend, so you can do there's trip notifications and things like that for generating reports for a trip. So Expensify is my only smartphone app tip on as far as that goes if you do travel a lot. So back to the organizing and bookkeeping, Andrea.
First off, Erin, do you actually use that one?
You know what? I just found out about it very recently, and I have 2 receipts in my wallet from my trip to Austin last weekend, and I'm going to start using it because I have a trip this week to New York, and then 2 weeks to Florida, and another to Chicago very soon. Shortly after. So I'm really excited to have this now, so I don't have to worry about that kind of receipt clutter, and I have everything right here all together. I can quickly create a report and send it over to accounting. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. I've just discovered it recently. So
cool. Well, as for my process, last year I hired a bookkeeper, and it has been the best money ever spent. And that's because a couple years ago my QuickBooks completely crashed, and I didn't have a backup, and I had to basically create the past year for tax purposes from all of my bank statements. So I'm like, never ever again. So I hired a bookkeeper last year, and literally it's really cool because I upload my statements. I have a shared Google Drive that she has access to. I upload all my statements that she needs. I have a Google Doc in there that shows her all of the deposits, what the company was for, any kind of expenses that I put on there. I kind of track that for her too. I haven't shared the side of my checking account yet just because it's tied with our personal. And honestly, I haven't investigated whether or not I can get them a separate login just so they can see my business checking. But they have access to my QuickBooks online, and they do all of the reconciliation every month, all of the entries, everything basically. I can go into QuickBooks online and do all of my invoicing that I need to every month, and they just do all of the reconciling for me. So what I do is I make my own deposits still. And actually, I'd actually deposit a lot of my checks online. I use Chase, and I love that they have the app that you can just deposit your checks right there from your phone. If it's a large amount, you have to go to the bank still, but the majority of those are direct deposited for me. And so whenever I get those, I literally just put them in this folder right here. And I have you can see some are sticking out of the top, and that means Andrea has to go through and add them to her Google Doc spreadsheet so the accountant knows exactly what those expenses are, because they just see that there's an entry in my checking account. They don't know exactly what it's for. So that's the process for that, and then anything related to this year's taxes will go in here. So then when these deposits have been kind of like reconciled from my end and they need to work on them, I just kind of flip them to the side, and this goes in one side of this folder, and then the other side will have different things in there that might be like tax notices, or I'll put my quarterly tax statements in here to know that, okay, I have to pull those out really quickly to see when things have to get paid, and then that goes on my calendar too, so I know when to pay those types of things. The other thing that I do, because I do keep paper receipts, I actually have no problem losing my receipts, because especially when I travel with Erin and Tony, they usually pay for everything.
We pay for everything. We don't have any receipts.
Yeah, they're my sugar mamas. So what I do is when I'm traveling for other stuff and I'm not with them, it's so sad, but I keep a little folder like this, and this is just one of those like open, like, see, I don't know what it's called, but it's one of those. Yeah, accordion folders. And then if I was really organized, I'd have the month in the top, but I didn't do that last year when I got these. So I actually have these separated by the month. So these are all my receipts separated by the month. So that way, for me, if I ever get audited, not just for my accountant, but if I were to ever get audited, I want to be able to have all my receipts by January 2013, February 2013, so I can go back and, you know, do what I need to do with that. So my stapler's broken right now, and I actually have this on my desk because I was going to try to, I met with the accountant last week, and I wanted to get all of our tax stuff put together and put in the filing cabinet so I can just be done with it. And my stapler's broke, so I can't staple all of those things together. So now I have to get a new stapler. But that's my process for all of my taxes. And then, you know, I pay quarterly like probably most of us do. And this year I'm actually going to meet with my accountant to talk about, to do more of a quarterly review to say, okay, I know this is the estimate I got based on my earnings last year, but you know, if I can send any less to the government, then I will find a way to do that, because I'm not going to overpay them. I don't remember the last time I got a return, but I don't want a return. I don't want to overpay them. I don't want to give them an interest-free loan, because guess what? If we have to pay them taxes, we don't get an interest-free loan. We have to pay like interest on that if for some reason you can't pay. So I'm going to meet with them quarterly to see how different the earnings are based on my estimates, and change that based on that information.
I want to add one thing as the picture of what not to do. This is all about losing all respect for Tony as a blogger. We should have called this session. I think Andrea had a great point with the quarterly review. I had an error in the other way where I because I don't do a good job depositing things, although I do use my phone now, and that has helped me a lot. And I also got, hold on, and if Mitchell hears this, he's going to laugh. His dad told me to get a stamp with my bank account number and my signature on it, because like that was a hurdle for me because I couldn't remember my bank account number. So I ordered this, so I just have to stamp and take a picture on my phone. So that's actually helped me too. So if you're really problematic like me, do that. I grossly underestimated my income 2 years ago on quarterly, and ended up getting fined by the IRS because I underpaid. And then on top of that, when I actually paid, I never checked my account to see if it had been taken out, and there was a glitch in the system when we paid. So while we had a receipt that we paid, it never was actually removed. So 6 weeks later, when I opened the bank account and realized that I had way too much money in there, I realized that it hadn't been taken out, so was fined for that as well. So anyway, I love paying the IRS lots of money in fines, and so that's the thing. Be on these things. Like I was just like, hey, it's no big deal. Like I'll pay it, you know. But like now that I have to pay fines on top of what I already have to pay because I just wasn't responsible, that's super frustrating. And I know that all of us have like areas in this where we're not like we're great on one thing, but then we're not so great on finding receipts or doing this or that. Like it's just such an important thing to be up on, because I don't think any of us really want to be like dealing with the IRS outside of just writing a check, right? So anyway, that's just another little lesson from Tony's mistakes that you can learn tonight. And I already downloaded the app, Aaron. It's on my phone. I'm ready to go. So we're good.
Well, you know what? The other thing I wanted to mention was the mileage piece, because that's the thing that that is the manual part for me. So that's why I'm excited about this app. But what I do with that is I always write down whenever I have travel or anything, it goes on my Google Calendar. And so literally what I did last week before I met with the accountant is I went through last year's calendar and I put on my spreadsheet for all my expenses, like trip here, and then I gave, you know, like the good estimates of what the travel was from there and back and all that kind of stuff. But because I looked at a few apps to try to help me do that, and none of them were really good. So I'm hoping this one is, because that's the biggest pain for me, is like having to go through that process. And it only took an hour, but it was still a pain, because I thought, like, what if I was, you know, in my car and saying, leaving for my trip now, and as soon as I got there I said, okay, here, so stop tracking, and then left again, and I'm, you know, that kind of thing would be awesome if something could do that.
Yeah, I think this app does that from my initial fiddling with it, but I'm not 100% sure. Up until this point, what we've done, and by we, I mean my husband, he does the bookkeeping for me, which is amazing, but he will, anytime I take a trip, like even if it's just to the airport, he will print out a like MapQuest map So he'll just put in our address, San Antonio Airport, print it out. It has the exact number of miles on there. And we also have an accordion folder similar to the one that Andrea just showed. And he will just slip that MapQuest map in on that particular month or whatever it is. So that way we have kind of that, running record of when there's travel, when I have, when I drove to Austin, when I drove to Houston last year, I think, for something. So that's another way to do that if this app doesn't help with kind of that mileage, if you're traveling to a speaking engagement, mileage, right? So that is a fantastic point too. Another thing we've kind of been talking about, and I just wanted to kind of mention or walk through the process, is how do you calculate your quarterly taxes? How do you do that? And we've been doing this for a number of years, but if you're someone who's a blogger, and so we can base it on past years' income and increase it hopefully if that's what we're looking at in each new year. But how does if you don't have an accountant yet, how do you estimate those quarterly taxes? Like, does anybody have any input on that? Do you remember that initial process and what you did?
You know what? Whenever I got to the point where I had to start paying quarterly taxes, I actually got the information from Jody, our accountant. But I know that you just go on what your previous year tax bracket was, and so I think the best thing is to say, okay, if you had to pay 30% in taxes last year, take that out of every month and put that aside in your savings. That way you can be prepared to pay that every quarter. And then I don't know if is there something maybe on the federal government site telling you, like, here's a calculator and you can print out these, because I always get the little coupon vouchers too. And there has to be something like that available somewhere for free, because they want you to give them their money somehow, right? So there has to be something like that out there so you can do the calculations really quick and just print off those vouchers for yourself.
Right. I've always worked with an accountant. We have for our personal as well. We had a complicated family business situation a couple years ago, so that's when we started working with our accountant, and she's helped us calculate those based on current income into future income estimates. And it's a good kind of a problem to have, right? To have to do these estimates and go, oh, I'm making a lot more money in 2014 than I did in 2013. That's a good thing, but then come April 15th, when we have to we've adjusted our quarterly payments and we have to, balloon that up a little bit. It's a little harder to swallow, but good kind of problems to have. I think that, in our realm, in our, online business, ad impressions change all the time, affiliate offers change all the time. We never really know how much we're going to earn. And I can say for myself, in January and February, I saw huge bumps in revenue. March is going to kind of be as it was most of last year, and I'm going to get another big bump based on estimated ad revenue again in April. And so it's really hard to estimate, how much. I hope to stay on this, up and up track, but maybe not. You never know what's going to happen. Traffic could plateau, it could tank again. For me right now, Facebook is doing awesome, and that could tank. And so how do you make those estimates? And I think you go back based on, maybe even go back to last year's Q1 and Q2, because over the year, I think you see those ups and downs in ad revenue and affiliate revenue. We all know that, for a lot of those in the frugal lifestyle space, that November, December, January, February are just heavy payout months because of the holidays, right? So you kind of have to average those into the rest of the year as well too. So I would certainly recommend, if you're starting out and your business is growing quickly, working with an accountant, just so that you have all your ducks in a row. You're getting all of the tax breaks that you possibly can deduct. As Andrea said, we are writing the checks as self-employed small business owners, and they're tough to write each quarter. So I think that it would be very important. I think, as Andrea said earlier about the bookkeeper being the best money, that she's spent in a while, or that's smart money to spend. And I would say the same thing if my husband wasn't into bookkeeping and into numbers and tracking all of this for me. That would have been one of the first things that I outsourced as well. So I think that having an accountant on your team, when I set aside the 26 to 30%, depending on your tax bracket, a part of that percentage that I put into savings every month is for the accountant, and would be for a bookkeeper. So you might need to up that to 32, 33%, depending on what your situation is, because I remember sitting in a meeting with our accountant, the first meeting that we had with her when we were going to hire her, and she said, okay, you would owe this much in quarterly taxes. We're like, oh, no problem, it's right here. And she's like, what? Usually people are like freaking out because they haven't set aside money. They're this new small business, they're investing in their new business, they're taking money that they're earning and putting it forward to the next thing, and then they're like, oh right, taxes, wait, it's April 15th, what, it's September, whatever the months are, July, September, when do I pay this? I have to pay this now? Where am I going to get this money from? So I think it's really smart. I actually answered an email about that this morning. What piece of financial advice would you have to a new online business owner? And that would be to start from the very beginning, setting aside at least 30% for taxes and for accountant and for bookkeeper, and that way you're not left hanging when it's April 14th and you owe $3,000 and you're like, where's $3,000? I don't even have that liquid anywhere, right? So before we wrap, I think we need to do, so we can't really see you, but raise your hand if you don't like the accounting bookkeeping process. Raise your hand if, or in writing checks to the government. Okay, Tony has both hands raised. Andrea's waving. Okay, but we still have to do it, right? So do you guys have any words of advice and swift kick in the rear pieces of motivation for everyone, as far as we've talked about Tony's mistakes, which are actually pretty motivating. But do you guys have any other advice or thoughts for that?
I actually have some advice from a flunky. If you are like me and you absolutely hate bookkeeping and it is not your strength, well, first of all, get a bookkeeper. But second, consider this stuff. Consider how you're making money on your site. One of the things that I stopped doing a couple years ago because I hated the bookkeeping part of it was basically trading product for payment, because you have to process that value when you're counting income. So it's just another step, because you have to find the value and you have to keep track of these things. So I know when we all first started blogging, getting free stuff was really cool, and it was kind of a fun perk, and it made us all feel like we were really kind of progressing forward in the blog career phase. But I feel like if it's not your strength to be tracking those kind of things, then turn them down, because it will just be another headache for you. And then the other thing is, I know a lot of us work in a lot of different affiliates, and so I have some affiliates that literally I get paid $1 a month because it's like an ebook sale or something like that. And what I found, that if it's something where I just know, if I look back over 2012 and 2013 and I realize I made $17 from something, then I might promote it if I feel like it's a good fit for my readers, but I might not even use an affiliate link, because it's not worth it to me to earn $17 to then have to deal with that $17 because it came in 15 payments of $1.20 from PayPal. So I think things like that, if this is not something that you like to do, evaluate the stuff that you're doing that causes you to have to do more of it, and maybe sometimes pass on items that really, at the end of the day, $17 is not going to make or break my site. And for me, it's more of a headache, and I have to pay somebody to take care of it anyway. So some of those things just aren't worth doing. And so I think that's something to think about, especially with product reviews and free products, is to think about how that has tax implications for you, and if it's actually worth. I mean, sometimes it is. I got a free Sleep Number bed, and that was worth it because it's the best bed in the world. But I probably wouldn't say that about a book, or as we like to say, a jar of yogurt. So this is something to think about moving forward, and looking at 2014 in your planning.
And that would be a really good topic to talk about for another chat, about products and giveaways and things like that and our value, because just my recent consulting position that I've landed, landed because I bought the product from a company and I gave them honest feedback, and they said, hey, we want to hire you. So I think that, I always tell people that, I buy a lot of my own stuff just because I don't want to have a write-off on something really crappy that I don't even want, And I had so many fewer products that I received last year just because of that, because I'd rather review something that I legitimately want, and there's going to be things that you want to get for a review. Absolutely, like my Dyson, I still love that baby after 4 years, but there are going to be things that you legitimately want to review and want to work with a company, but some of the stuff that we get, it's like, seriously, I don't need any of this stuff. I'll buy it myself if I want it, and I'll give it away to people if I want to. So there was another thing I was going to mention on the accounting thing. Oh, the other thing is that if you are working with an accountant, like I'm using QuickBooks Online. I feel like I'll never go back to a desktop version after I lost mine. And plus, QuickBooks Online it's so nice. It is a monthly fee attached to it, but I feel like it's worth it for me. But make sure you get reports set up so you can see how things are changing. So that was I met with my accountant last week, and to Erin's point, she was like, oh, you already have that in the bank? That's awesome. And when she told me how much we owed, because we always owe every friggin' year, I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? I feel like I got a bonus because I only had to pay a third of what I thought I would have to pay. And she was like, I love you guys. You always have your money saved. I'm like, yeah, well, got to do it. So, and the other thing about that is filing a little bit earlier. If you feel like you're not really sure what you have to pay, if you can file a little bit earlier in the year, then it gives you enough time to come up, if you have to come up with the rest of the money, if you don't really have it on hand, by that April 15th or whatever the deadline is. So, we filed early just because I happened to get my act together early. But last year we filed really late, and we owed a lot more last year. I'm just kind of throwing it all out there. And thankfully we had the money in savings, but we've had to file separately last year because we were better off financially to do that. And we kind of were waiting to get the refund on one side to be able to help pay for the other side, and it all came together. But that's something else to consider, that I hadn't thought of that until last year when I was like, you know what, we really should have filed earlier so we didn't have to deal with all this crap. And so this year we filed a little bit earlier, and then I got that little unexpected bonus. But the other thing on the accountant is that ask them to set up files for you that you can download or review each month. So something very simple like your ledger, your expenses, your income, looking at the previous year, previous 2 years, how much things have changed. I think you'll get a real shocker to see, like, you're doing things maybe because you've always done them that way, but what is the real margin that you're taking in based on all of the expenses that are going out? Maybe you do have VAs, maybe you have a team. If your margin is 10%, like, is it really worth your time to have to manage it for 10% return? I mean, I'm making decisions this year based on that because my margins have dropped, and I'm not going to do it anymore. So that's something else that those reports will show you if you can get those set up.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that whole, like, using your reports to make decisions is a whole nother chat, and actually one we should probably do soon, because I think that there's so much power in the numbers to help you make smarter decisions. We talk a lot, I see this phrase used a lot, and I use it myself, is, work smarter, not harder. So, using your income reports. Just wanted to address a couple of notes that people dropped on the page. Here, do you have separate checking accounts for your blog? Absolutely, 100%. You should separate your business finances from your personal finances. I have a savings account and a checking account for my business for $5 dinners. LLC, I guess, and we also have a separate checking account for Digital CoLab, and I use my $5 dinner savings account for saving for taxes, pretty much, and then if there's anything else I want to invest in, I have that savings there, and then I use the cash for cash flow payment of people who I work with and whatnot, apart from PayPal. Another note about from Jen, S-Corps pay monthly. Yes, S-Corps are a different type of business entity, and they pay on a monthly basis, not quarterly. We are all set up as LLCs, so that's why we've been talking about quarterly. So, if you're an S-Corp, you'll get different coupons that you'll have to send in every month. And Mara has great advice about finding a great accountant. I think that is key as well. I know there are a couple of accountant husbands maybe in our community who know and understand the business side of blogging in particular. I think that that's really key. And as Andrea's noted, somebody who you're willing to work with. We've been talking a lot about QuickBooks tonight, but if you find a great accountant who you love and understands your business and is going to help you, maximize all of your, opportunities for deductions, work with them in whatever program they want to work in. If they're FreshBooks or they're a different, they use a different accounting software, they will teach it to you. I know when we first started, we, paid a very small fee to learn the system that they used, and ever since then it is, for the past several years has been very smooth sailing. So definitely key, and thanks for that advice, Mara, as far as finding a great accountant. So thank you guys. We are just past the half hour here. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been a very real, from Tony and her tax flunky, and very helpful session tonight on bookkeeping and accounting, and we hope that we have provided some great information as well as a swift kick in the rear for you to April 15th is less than a month away. It's a big day for everybody, so we hope that you're not scrambling to get everything together to get that check and get that postmarked on the 15th to get this next payment in if you're on quarterly, or this month if you're not. So thank you all for joining us. On behalf of Andrea and Tony, we will tell you guys good night and talk to you next week.